All right, I am here. I'm so excited about this. I have my good friend. He's a world-class lawyer. He's invested in the community. He's an amazing family man. Nitin Bhatia of Great Bhatia LLP. Nitin, thank you so much for being here, man.
Thanks for that intro. Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, I'm really excited to having you, because obviously you are somebody that I have known for longer than probably anybody.
Yeah.
Like we go back in Mill Woods, back in the day.
Yeah.
What is your earliest memory of me, of Shawn Kanungo?
I remember being a jerk to you because we were a little bit older, so the older kids in the neighborhood were bullying the younger ones. But I think my memories were always of all of us playing together, but us picking on the smaller ones, and then I stayed pretty short, and the rest of the guys out.
Well, it's funny because we were neighbors in Mill Woods,
Yeah.
and then you guys moved to Twin Brooks. We were in Twin Brooks as well.
Yeah, we followed each other around.
And now we're still in the South Side, man. We're just gonna our graves will be right next to each other.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be cremated, but anyways, we'll be in heaven together. Oh no, we'll actually karma. We'll actually be reincarnated as monkeys.
Absolutely.
Both of us.
Yeah. Same trees.
Yeah. Well, I was really excited to have you because we're always having deep philosophical discussions, whether it's over text, calls, like whenever we meet each other. And I think I want to hit up on a couple topics today, and I want to throw them your way. And the first one is really around, I guess, post-secondary institutions in the universities. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you this question. Do you believe universities are still worth it? Is it still valuable to go to university?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's value in the institution. At the end of the day, you do need to meet a basic criteria of education to be able to perform in certain professions. But I think what universities were doing for many, many years has to be changed. If you maintain the old standard of just education, academia, I think that universities will become less and less relevant. But I do think universities are trying to adapt to it too by becoming a little bit more practical. And there are many ways to do that, of course.
I think the reason why I was asking that question, and I totally agree that it's going to change, is because I think the reason why most people go to university is because they want a degree, they want a certification from a particular brand saying, I went here for 4 years, and now this should be the entry ticket to get into the club.
That's right.
Club being this particular profession and whatnot. And by the way, the better the brand, the more valuable the ticket.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think there was universities have always been treated as sorting, basically sorting institutions, and there's just sorting methodology, right? So if you go to X university and you obtain the Y degree, you end up in a Z situation. And what it would do is it would end up sorting society for you. But again, I think that's because universities had a different purpose a long time ago. I mean, most universities you didn't even pay for because governments were wanting their populations to become more educated and become more productive and give back to their countries, right? And now it's universities have become so much more of a business than anything else, that the business of university has turned into what we're describing now, which is if the university can brand itself the right way, it can charge more for the service being provided, the service being this education that they're providing.
So is it let's just cut to the chase.
Yeah.
People are just going to university just they're going for it, for the degree. Are we actually preparing people for the future? Are we actually preparing students for the future?
I mean, it's tough because I think it's based on the program, but I think the bigger issue is what is the goal of the institution and that program? Are they trying to create work-ready people or work-savvy people? And I think that there's a differential between the two.
Okay.
So work-ready, I equate that more to trades, where you learn how to do a specific thing and you just keep doing it. You could go to colleges for that and learn. But I think work savvy is a skill set that comes from basically broadening minds. And so broadening minds, academia has its place, but so does collaboration with practitioners. And best example I can give is from my own example of going to the University of Alberta's law school, is when I went there. Yes, I gained from the academic courses, but the kind of knowledge that I also gained from going to courses that were taught by practitioners, those one-off courses,
Totally.
really helped sharpen and develop skills that I could use in my day-to-day practice when I came out of school. So I think universities have to take that focus as a whole and apply it broadly amongst all the programs, because that's what I was getting back to, is they're going to have to change the product that they're producing, because if they stick to the old program of simply just educating society to make society smarter as a whole, there are many other ways to do that now. You don't need to go to university
Totally.
to be educated, right?
Well, yeah, you don't. I mean, today, like, you can. Your education, like, people getting educated on TikTok, on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's sites like Masterclass where you can get like Gordon Ramsay or Serena Williams or Steph Curry to teach you their particular craft, and they're world class at their particular field. Why, like, learn about cooking from this particular institution when Gordon Ramsay or some of the best chefs can teach you?
Absolutely.
So I think the entire idea of education has blown up, and universities, I think, still has a place, but let's talk about what it should be about collaboration. It should be about experiences. It should be about like case studies. It should be about problems. That's, to me, what university is all about. It's about actually meeting people. Yeah. It's about like having sex with people. It's about like when do you meet people? Like, that's the value.
And when do you have sex with people? But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I think there's another issue here, though. I mean, it ties back to a point that we were discussing off camera, which is I'm not a huge fan of just online education because of this reason. Like, online education has its place, but learning how to be emotional, learning empathy, developing emotional intelligence comes from interaction. And I think human-to-human interaction, even you can do it over camera, but there's something special about being in person and being in a group setting. And that's where, collaboration and new ideas also come from. I mean, ultimately, universities have always been the biggest incubators, right? The best ideas in the world have traditionally come from universities, whether it was in tech or whether it was in philosophy, but it comes from these institutions. It comes from collaborative efforts. So yeah, I mean, I think going to university, outside of getting the degree and going through that sorting method where you end up being in a role where you practice in a particular profession, I think that universities still have a lot of relevance when it comes to the development of a human being.
Agreed. And I think this like ties into another topic that I'm really interested in, which is, professional services firms.
Yeah.
I know we've been on this. I know I've been talking to you about this for years, and I keep shouting about it, and I'm never going to stop. Mm-hmm. That, like, the balance of power shifting from institutions to individuals. And it poses the question, how relevant are the firms? When today, in terms of professional services, all the knowledge is out there. Yeah. It's available. It's accessible. Some of the best talent in the world is at our fingertips. The ways for you to put out your ideas is infinite. So are firms still relevant?
Yeah, so being an owner of a firm, it's hard to say that firms are not relevant. But I think that again, we come back to the traditional mindset and whether that's.
So tell me what the traditional mindset of a firm owner is.
So if you look at it again, whether it's law firms, accounting firms, and all. There was once this belief that the bigger the firm, the better it was, because it had bigger boardrooms, a view of downtown, and you could sell the sexiness of it. But why, call it a big company like Air Canada would go to a large multinational law firm as opposed to maybe a 5-lawyer firm was ultimately manpower, right? They were going to firms where they could put 50 lawyers on a file, and they could intimidate other firms or other entities that may have disputes with them by simply being like, well, here's my 50 lawyers, where's yours?
Right.
So that used to have a place and a value. Similarly in accounting, if you needed audits done and you needed 50 auditors on something, you couldn't go to a small practitioner to do that. But over time, tech changed things, right? Not only tech changing things, but people have started learning how to work smarter. And as a result, what used to take 40 or 50 lawyers to handle could now be done by 5 or 6 lawyers. So what's happened is you've actually seen the concept of big law shifting. Big law still has its place because there's still going to be certain types of projects that are going to need 100 lawyers on something, or lawyers across the world that all work under the same brand. So when we talk about traditional firms, we talk about that traditional mindset of the bigger is better and you have a lot of resources. But I think the relevance of those firms is starting to reduce only because I think the traditional mindset of firms is starting to shift or should be shifting. Where I actually look at the standpoint of before you used to use the brand of a firm to attract clients. And I, at least in my own business, and I think a lot of other firms are starting to do this, is they're trying to use the brand of their firm to now attract the talent.
Right. So this is an interesting point because you looked at it from a technology perspective, and of course, it's making things more seamless, more efficient, etc.
Yeah.
I want to know from a firm perspective, how do you view talent in a traditional sense?
Yeah.
Because I have an opinion of how you should view it in this sort of new world. But
Yeah.
in a traditional firm, owner-led,
Yeah.
how do you look at talent?
Well, I mean, I'd lie if I said I haven't changed over time. But my traditional viewpoint on talent was, the people that get the work done, right? And of course, the faster they were, the less mistakes they made, the better. And to some degree, and talent has its place in multiple fields, whether you have certain talent that attracts clientele and certain that gets the work done, it all falls together. So that was the traditional view of
and by the way, that is the industrial model, a way of looking at it, that everyone is actually cattle.
That's right.
We stamp them with a number, and they are.
You don't want to view them as that, but I know what you mean. Like that's ultimately how our industries have.
Yeah, that's the traditional way of looking.
And cattle remains cattle, but as they work up and they become more valuable, they become the owner that controls other cattle. But that was the traditional method for sure. Yeah.
And I think, to me, the way that firms should take a look at their talent is that instead of treating them like cattle, treat them like rock stars. Yeah. Because the power has shifted to them, where not only can they build value for the firm through the work that they do, but through their ideas, through being able to be that magnet for clients and work. I just feel like people trust people, people follow people at the end of the day. And this is a fundamentally different mindset for many firms.
Well, and this I think ties into the comment I was making about how firms should at least be thinking about shifting from this idea of my brand attracting a client to my brand attracting talent. Because once you're in order to attract that talent, the talent has to believe that there's something behind that brand. The talent doesn't necessarily care about the big boardroom anymore, right? What are they actually looking for? And I think that if you want to brand yourself correctly in today's market to attract that talent, you need to be known as the firm that provides resources to its talent, who supports their talent, doesn't suppress their personalities, doesn't suppress their desires to want to try different things. So, I'll go back to the firm that we currently are at. In my firm, we have young articling students who are talking to us about things like the things that you talk about in your seminars, which is NFTs, cryptos, blockchain. They're talking to us at a table, and a lot of times, I can tell you, most of the guys that are 35 plus are at the table just trying to figure out where we can actually apply this into our industry. But there's two ways to deal with an articling student or first-year associate that has those thoughts. One is to say, okay, yeah, thanks, that's a good lunchtime talk, get back to work. Another way of dealing is to say, okay, look into how we can become a service provider in these industries, because we know that's what's going to happen. Are there courses you can take? Can we support you in going to those courses? Do you need a forum? Do you want to start giving lectures, or you want to start being on LinkedIn with videos and materials? I think that it comes back to your point. Is treat them like rock stars because they are. If you went to the process of hiring these people, the world is full of people. But when you've decided which talent you wanted to bring in, you must have thought something of these people.
Yeah.
Don't suppress them and make them cattle. I agree with you there.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's like what you've said is essentially just empowering them to work on what they're passionate about. Obviously, there has to be a market around it eventually, but allowing them to sort of flex their innovative muscles, flex their innovative ideas. Yeah. And I think this idea of firms sort of treating their talent as rock stars actually it creates friction for partners. Yeah. It creates friction for leadership for many different reasons because most leaders believe that they are sort of they hold all the power. They also should know everything that's happening. Yeah. And I think it flips the entire model where if you have young people, they're talking about NFTs and crypto and DeFi and social tokens, it actually makes people nervous because they're like, I actually don't know what you're talking about. That's right. Yeah. So shut up.
I don't want you to be the smartest person in the room.
Exactly.
I agree with you there. I think there's also another aspect to it, which is I think there are a lot of partners in traditional firms, whether it's law, accounting, whatnot, who also believe that they earn their stripes. And so you need to go through the same process. So, and to some degree, that's a fair comment, right? Like, the traditional comment, I think every law firm talks about this is that, when I articled, I used to carry my principal's briefcase to the courthouse, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, again, learning methods, but the thing is to completely disregard the knowledge pool that exists in the younger people in your firm or your company, that's silly. You're wasting what you've acquired.
Yeah.
So
what I guess what would be your advice to firm owners, partners that are sort of grappling with this, younger generation that is coming up with new ideas and innovative ideas of how to approach the world?
I mean, I think you have to embrace it. Work still has to get done, so you have to obviously ensure that gets done. But embrace it by giving them a forum to speak about it, even if it's just within the firm setting.
Yeah.
But and open up your minds. I'm the first one to admit this. Is a year or two ago, some of the stuff that you would say in your seminars, I'd watch all your videos.
Wow, thank you.
It was bizarro world to me. Like some of it's still bizarre to me.
Yeah.
It was, the concept of cryptocurrencies becoming a real thing. The idea of NFTs. I honestly laughed at the idea. I think you and I had phone calls about it where I couldn't wrap my head around buying a Top Shot card from the NBA because I said, this is easy. Someone can copy paste the screen, and now there's two of them, right?
You're still not there yet?
I'm with NFTs. I'm not entirely there yet. I'm mentally not there yet in the sense that I still don't understand the utility. But then, I mean, in fairness, what's the utility of the Mona Lisa or a painting that exists in hard form, right? It's art is art. But the thing is I just the concept of something in your hand, something you can feel, touch, and hold, as opposed to something that's totally digitalized. I'm still not there yet. So imagine I'm 39 now. Imagine a 65-year-old in a boardroom meeting where a bunch of 22-year-olds are talking about this.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with being 65-year-olds can be open-minded and smart and in tune with everything. But that generational gap is huge.
Totally.
Most of these guys never played.
No, I totally agree. I think the idea of valuing digital goods over physical goods is not something that we were grown up with, but I think the closest thing to valuing digital goods is, for example, like the check mark. You get a IG check mark, you get a Twitter check mark. Yeah. There is value in that, right? And people would love to have it, right?
The social influence, the recognition of having social influence is becoming a thing, right? It's not just becoming a thing; it is a thing,
right? So if you can value, if people, in our generation, can value a check mark, then they could value potentially a digital sneaker, a scarce digital sneaker in the metaverse.
Yeah,
the stretch is not far. In the sense that why value a check? It's literally a blue check mark. It means nothing at the end of the day.
You're right.
This platform, this Twitter, this IG could disappear tomorrow. And by the way, nothing like the check mark would be gone.
It'd be gone. Yeah. Well, I think it has always come down to monetization, right? At the end of the day, social influence, when once monetized, made the blue check mark far more valuable.
No. I think you're wrong.
No?
I think it comes down to our imagination at the end of the day. I believe for example, what NFTs are, they are just it is the epitome, is the climax of like human imagination, which actually started everything. I mean, this is why we have buildings and theaters and art and poetry and romance. Yeah. It's because of our imagination. And the fact that we can value something, and we know that it's scarce because it's on a blockchain. It's the culmination of our imagination, and that the fact that we can value these objects or digital objects.
But I think where I meant to. Sorry, go ahead.
But by the way, let me tell you that these NFTs are going to. It's not just digital.
Yeah.
They can represent a digital token that represents offline assets like real estate, property, real estate. Buildings. Like it can represent so much more. So, land, like. So it's just a technology that can basically represent authentic. It can be authenticated, and it can be it shows scarcity, right?
And see, I'm so behind on understanding NFTs in that context that most of what you just said sounds interesting, but also extremely scary. Because I know really nothing about how they're going to do that.
Hey, by the way, we're early in this game. Like, it's not like no one knows what the hell they're doing.
Like the idea of tying an NFT to land ownership, I don't even know where that starts. What I do know and what I do recognize, though, is that it's probably going to happen, and that my industry is going to be shaken up by it, just like most industries would. Which for coming back in the whole circle, circle back to it. That's why these 22 and 23-year-olds that know a lot more about it are very valuable to us. Right? Like we need to nurture this.
So I want to talk to I want to talk about those 22 and 23-year-olds. I know the conversation has been a lot about that. There's this term flying around. The Great Resignation. The Great Resignation. I see this in CNBC articles, people talking about individuals turning over. Job turnover is at an all-time high. Definitely in the U.S. I think in Canada, we're not quite there yet. What's your opinion on the Great Resignation? Is this like a fad? Is this a thing? Like, what's your sentiment around it?
Well, I mean, let's look at where it started, right? So I think the Great Resignation started pre-pandemic, and it started based on the concept of unfair pay. There were a number of people across America and in Canada that felt that the minimum wage or close to minimum wage was below the poverty line. And so a lot of folks literally just stopped working and said, we're not going to work. We're better off on welfare and social programs. But the pandemic hit when that was hitting its peak. So the pandemic hits, and now there's some social assistance that comes through in both Canada and the U.S. But what it also does is it showed a lot of vulnerabilities that businesses have in North America. Focus on Canada specifically. At the end of the day, we still run on human capital. And sometimes businesses fail to see that ultimately human capital is the most important thing we have.
Absolutely.
And so if you have a bunch of workers who are disgruntled with what they earn, again, we're talking about the people that are getting paid the least, and suddenly they're given an opportunity where they can actually press pause for a brief moment. They actually get to see what reality looks like. And that's what's happened. I think a lot of people they were forced to press pause. And by pressing pause, they looked at their situation, they said, this can't be it. I'm 35 or 40 years old, and I can't be making $12 an hour in a world where $12 an hour is not going to get me where I need to go. So either they have to start paying me more, or I need to make a shift. And then it ties into a number of things, right? How many people started enrolling in online courses to upgrade during these last 2 years? How many people have changed skill sets entirely or developed new skill sets? It's all been tied to the fact that they were forced to press pause.
Well, my definition, I think, is different, or my, the background of the Great Resignation, and the idea that more and more people are turning over.
Yeah.
To me, it's the idea that work has become a lot more digital. Work has become a lot more remote. Yeah. And so, listen, when I'm on my phone and I can switch between Twitter and Facebook and the news and like this, like we're just so scattered.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to our work, we're like, oh, what are the different options? Oh, I can work here. I can work there. And when you have different options, it's like on Tinder.
Yeah.
Like on Tinder, you swipe, you're like, oh my God, she's so hot. And then you swipe again, you found a hotter girl. And then you just go on Instagram and you just find super hot girls. By the way, I really love my wife.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never used Tinder for my wife.
But that's the whole thing, is that life has become more digital. It's become more fluid.
No,
and,
you're right.
And because there's more options, we become antsy. We're like, no, we want this, we want that.
Yeah. So, and just kind of linking back to it, where I was going with that, and it was kind of a longer history lesson, but when it started with that. So it started with people being unhappy with their situation and being forced to pause. Okay, but what I think's happened, this is my own observation now, is I think that they've actually inspired people. It's the people that said, you know what, enough of how I've been doing things, I need to shake it up. And it's kind of rolled through. So now you have, if still statistically, I think I was just looking at this, I think it was in the Atlantic last week, but they were saying something like 60 to 70% of the people that have resigned in the US were people earning under $18 an hour. So they still, like the vast majority of people that left are there. But the 30% that left for other reasons and it wasn't monetary, I think that's the new wave, and that's going on as we speak. I think more and more people have embraced that, hey, I don't want to work in the traditional mindset anymore. So it's not that I don't want to work. I still don't mind doing this job, but I don't want to do it the way these guys want me to do it. So it comes back to that, what do the firms have to shift? Do the corporations have to shift their mentality? So if there's people out there saying, nah, you know what, I like working from home, I don't really see the point in going into the office. Well, they have to find a firm or a corporate culture that embraces that.
Right.
Not everyone will.
No.
Right? And that's okay too. I don't think that everyone has to adapt to a work from home culture. But you're absolutely right, is people have discovered that there's better ways, or not necessarily better, but different ways that are better for them, whether it's their mental health, their social health, whatever it is, and they prefer to do it that way. And the cards are in their hands because, again, we come back to it, human capital is much more valuable than for a period of time where people were perceiving it to be. So yeah, you want to retain your talent, you will likely have to adapt a little bit in your corporate culture as well to make it happen.
And perhaps I think this is the bat signal for organizations, for companies to say, maybe this is not the Great Resignation. Maybe this is like the great reimagination of work.
Yes.
And that we have to, going back to what we talked about the balance of power, like maybe we have to treat our talent like rock stars. Yeah. Maybe we should reevaluate how we can best connect the things that people are passionate about with the work that they have, so that people want to stay. They want to be part of this firm.
Yeah, I think that ultimately comes down to is you have to be supportive of your talent, and whether it means resources, education, giving them the right forum to do what they need to do, the right platform. These are things that you have to do. And again, I think the word rock star, like I think there's companies or business owners out there who would be a little bit scared by hearing how we're describing it. Be like, what do you mean? Like, do I have to roll out the red carpet for everybody that works for me and all that? Again, it's not meant to be a us versus them, a owner versus a employee. But I think it's not about treating them like rock stars in that sense. Like, it's not about spoiling people or the perception of spoiling. I think it's about treating a person like the talented individual that they are,
Yes.
and ensuring that you're embracing their best qualities and bringing them to light instead of tucking them away in some back room and not giving them a chance to breathe, not giving them a chance to do what they need to do to elevate their game, which is likely going to elevate your company's game. And just on a separate topic related to this, though, is, there's also a fear, I think, amongst a lot of business owners to say, if I propel this person too much, they're going to leave.
Right.
But think about the messaging that you send out there when you produce a star. Think about the talent pool out there that is looking to develop their talents. Do they want to go to you and join you and become the next star? Or do they want to go somewhere else where they're going to be suppressed? I think that's where it comes back to, is you want to have a brand. You want to be known as the firm that produced
Absolutely.
A, B, and C.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter if they stayed with you or not. Their success is still your success.
Well, you're talking about what, like, a cultural moat, which is this idea that the reason why the Harvards, the McKinseys of the world, the reason why they're still relevant today is because they are star makers, right? The people that are come in, they go off and do amazing things, and by the way, that reinforces their sort of cultural moat, and the cycle continues. So I love what you said, which is, I think, a shift on how we look at firms, which is, how can we be the star makers, whether they're at our firms or they go off and they do something else? It still reinforces well on our firms.
Yeah,
so I love that. I love that.
I think we have to be practical too, which is, like, the last thing you want is to have your talent pool drained by everyone thinking that now they should just go do everything by themselves. So there's always going to be relevance and value in an organization that knows what it's doing and bringing people through. But again, you have to give people the ability to breathe. I think that's the biggest shift that I've seen in the work culture since I've started working. So I've been doing this for about 15 years or so in law, and the biggest shift I've seen is there's a disgruntlement amongst a number of lawyers that are 5 or 7 years in our workforce who say, I can't be doing this the same way for the rest of my life. I want to develop. And but they're told that, oh no, you work in this department, so this is what you do. No, I don't think that works.
Well, Nitin, it's been a lot of fun, man. We've talked about a lot of things. It's been great. Last question, just really quickly to wrap it up, very, very quickly. What do you think of Facebook's rebrand to Meta? Metaverse.
Yeah, metaverse. It's interesting, right? It's I think we knew that it was always going to be one of these companies that was going to lead us into the newest thing, right? Facebook, Amazon, Google, they're really the leaders of innovation in the tech worlds. So I'm not surprised by it, but to say I understand what they're planning to do and what the future holds, I have no idea.
Well, I don't think anybody sort of understands the metaverse. I don't think we're in it yet, so I don't think we can totally describe what it is. I saw like some of the videos that Mark Zuckerberg had, and it was interesting.
But do you think we're going to have... I'm curious about whether we're going to have avatars. Are we all going to have a digital personality and then our real life?
Yeah.
Where we have two worlds, essentially? And
well, the one thing that I do know, Nitin, is that my avatar in the metaverse will be a picture of you. Just the long flowing hair down to here. It's going to be beautiful. Well, Nitin, I want to thank you so much for being here, man. It was a pleasure. It was an honor. I think this 45 minutes will be posted everywhere, and I think it was really valuable. So
I hope that we both continue to learn from this. All the new ideas are coming out. It's amazing, and have to just be open minded. So I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing with your show and what you've been doing with your social media presence. Just opening up minds is so important.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you, man.